Hi, welcome to Travel Tales with Judith. I'm Judith and I share experiences and stories from a lifetime of traveling. Today, in episode 10, I'm not going to focus on a particular place or a particular experience, but rather on the unexpected surprise gifts that we have happen to us when we are traveling. Normally, I think when I go somewhere, there are things I want to see. There are some iconic landscape or iconic landmarks that I write down a list of must dos when I'm there. But I find that many times those particular items on my list get eclipsed by something unexpected that happens, some surprise, a gift to that trip. For example, a few years ago, I was in London visiting some relatives and I had a few days on my own. So I thought, well, I would make a reservation to go on the iconic London Eye, that huge Ferris wheel that provides spectacular views of London and the Thames River. But the day that I had my ticket for, it was gray and not very appealing, and I couldn't see very far, and it just looked like all the buildings were gray, and I was a bit disappointed. When I left the eye, within half a block, all of a sudden on my left side, there was a sign for an exhibition by the Spanish surrealist artist Salvador Dali. He was a painter and a sculptor. He was also a filmmaker. And as a Spanish teacher, I had focused on him when I tried to share my knowledge of some Spanish art and culture with the kids. Dali was always one of the people that came up because he was an eccentric, very interesting, just a crazy guy. And his work showed that. His work's fascinating if you've never seen it. You can look up Salvador Dali. So I went in this exhibition. I probably spent, I don't know, hour and a half looking at a lot of the works of Dali that I had never seen before. And what did I remember on that day in the trip? Was it the iconic eye that I had been on? No, it was an unexpected gift of an art exhibition. Something similar happened to me. Again, I was traveling alone in Madrid and I was spending, I think, 3 weeks in Madrid by myself. And I was wandering around, and all of a sudden there was a big sign out of this hall, and they were showing an exhibition of Rene Magritte, the Belgian surrealist who I'd never heard of before. But the picture on the sign stopped me, and I thought, this kind of looks interesting. So I went in, and if you're not familiar with Magritte, he's another artist that really makes you think, that he has ideas for his art that are completely out of the box. And after seeing his work in that particular exhibition, I went right out and got a couple books on Magritte that had even more of his work in it and learned more about him. And I think he's a very interesting guy. When my husband Bob and I were in Turkey a few years ago, um, and we had crossed the Bosphorus, the Strait of Bosphorus, from Istanbul to the town of Bursa. We only had a day or two in Bursa, but we went out from our hotel to find some dinner. And as we were walking, trying to find a restaurant, we noticed a shop window um, on the street, small shop window that had a beekeeper outfit in the window. Well, it just so happens that my husband was a beekeeper. So we stopped to look in the window and figure out, what this guy was selling. Was he selling honey? We weren't sure. And we're looking in the window and kind of peering in. And although the shop was closed, a man comes out of the shop and beckons us to come in. So we went in, and again, no languages were shared here. We don't speak Turkish. He didn't speak English. but they got a translating app on the computer. So my husband and this man were having this terrific conversation about their bees, what kinds of bees they had, what kinds of hives, what they did in the winter, things like that. And it also just so happened that not too long before that, our bees' hives had been damaged by a bear who'd come in. And Bob had pictures of the damaged hives and of the bear. So he showed these to this man, and the two of them were just having a great time. We must have sat for over half an hour. I just sat there, and they went back and forth typing on the computer, and it was you could see that it livened up everything. And before we left, the two men exchanged email addresses. And the man indicated for us to wait for a minute. And he went in the back of the shop and he came out with a brand new beekeeping suit, which he presented to Bob. And it was just lovely. And what do we remember about Bursa? We remember the beekeeper. Not on our schedule at all, not on our itinerary. And the last one was something that happened to me in Oaxaca in Mexico. I was down there again a number of years ago, and I was doing a little volunteer work there. And I was walking back to the room I had rented. And one night, as I'm walking back, the neighborhood was doing a procession of the Virgen de Guadalupe, the Virgin of Guadalupe, and they were carrying her statue on a small platform. And there were men carrying the platform, and there were a lot of people from the neighborhood just following it along. The next day, as I came through there about at the same time, I noticed that there were a lot of people in a room that I passed as I was walking. And at the front of the room, I could see that statue of the Virgin Mary. And so I kind of stopped and I wanted to hear what was going on. But they were actually finished with the service that they'd had, and they started coming out to the street. And a woman stopped and talked to me for a minute. And then I found out that the next door down were tables set up for a huge meal that was part of the whole celebration of the Virgin in that neighborhood. And they ushered me into that and sat me down. And I was the only gringa in there. And we sat there and had this wonderful meal of tamales and soft drinks. Again, something totally unexpected. I couldn't predict that these lovely people would invite the stranger in to share their celebration with them. So I'm hoping that when you travel, be open to these new experiences and take advantage of them, because these experiences, I think, provide some of the sweetest memories.